Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.
G'day, I'm Fletch, and I bring you back to the beautiful Cowra, New South Wales. And the guy you're about to see is no stranger to Classic Restos, but the reason for our return: he has had a recent acquisition to his collection, and you're about to see it in this week's Classic Restos on the road. I get a lot of emails through for the show. Give us more, Fletch. Take us places, Fletch. Give us information. I'm known as an information source. I bring the show to the people. Regional New South Wales, I love the history of these country areas. Our grandparents and where it all began, and great-grandparents before them. Behind me, relics, old dwellings, old homestead from the early 1800s. Hay bales. That's relics. It's not, it's hay bales. That's relics. Hay bales. Oh. I thought it was relics.
I love getting out and around these parts. There's just something about it. The history of our towns, the buildings, open spaces. The list is almost endless. Close to 10,000 people reside here in this Central West regional town, established in 1846. Of course, the people help make these beautiful areas, and that now brings us to catching up with Brian Tomkins once again, which is always a pleasant chore.
Gee, Brian, I've got to say, I love your chrysanthemums.
Fletch, they're roses, mate.
And Brian, I love your oranges.
Fletch, they're lemons.
Brian is still doing okay, residing here on his 2-acre property. What I love about Brian is that where some, his age, might be hanging the boots up, you never know what Brian will buy next. And his recent 1963 original unrestored Imperial Crown will simply blow you away. And away we go. Always a pleasure. How are you, Brian?
Thanks, Fletch. I'm feeling well. Always good, mate.
It's great to see you again.
Thank you. Yeah. Good to be here.
Yeah, you still have a lot of height.
I think you're shrinking. I don't think I'm getting any taller.
Brian, you never cease to amaze me, as we alluded to in the voiceover, where some people may choose at a certain stage of life just to maybe not buy or be content with what cars they've got. You just keep on going. You pull a rabbit out of a hat, you'll sell one, then another car just appears. Now, this car behind us, this is breathtaking. 1963 Imperial Crown. Not only that, an original car, never been restored, original paint, plastic on the seats. I'm amazed that cars such as this are still around, and to think that here in Australia, obviously, car from the United States, Pennsylvania car and a Michigan car, I can see some stickers on there, and ending up in Victoria.
Yeah, exactly. The fellow I bought it from got it from, I think, a deceased estate. And he was an Imperial collector, and he just finished up with too many cars and decided to move it on. And I just happened to be there at the right time, and that's what I wanted. So there you go. It's now in the shed.
The styling of this vehicle, right in that space age era, yep. Towards the end of the 1950s, early 1960s, a very, adventurous time for designers. Virgil Exner, this was the last year that Virgil actually designed this car. Outstanding.
Yeah, exactly. I know it sounds strange, but one of the main reasons I bought it was the dash. it's just so out there when you look at other cars and what they were doing. I know Cadillacs had a nice dash and some of the early Corvettes and that, but this was just so out there with the square steering wheel and the way the controls were with the push-button automatics and just the whole arrangement of it. The headlights at the front, four-door pillarless. It's exactly what I was looking for, and it was rather unique, so there you go.
We look at this dashboard. It is space age, revolutionary styling. As you mentioned before, you dropped the name of Cadillac, Lincoln of the same era. They all had their beautiful accolades, didn't they?
For sure. It was an era where they were looking to be just sort of one up on the next mark, I think, and that's what they tried to do. And I think they hit it with this one. And that's one of the reasons I got it.
It's amazing when you look at the front of these cars. Like, who'd design a car and then almost to the point where, we've left the headlights off, we better throw them in somewhere.
You're dead right. I've never seen a car ever. I've read stories on it, and it was to try to get back to the old era of the headlights mounted on the guards and free from the framework of the car.
Also in '63, the rear end, the styling had tamed down a little bit. We've lost our fins, the tail lamps, an integral part of the top of the rear quarter, which is very nice. It's slimline, a very smooth look there in the rear.
Puts a bit of class to the car, I think, you know. Not that fins were, but that was an era. We've been there, done that. Yeah. And this was the next era that they went through with a more refined sort of look. The market, there was a top-end car they were selling to. It was a Cadillac Lincoln market that they were trying to get.
Okay, so a 53,000-mile car here, Brian, unrestored, original paint, the plastic on the seats. Now, what's your thought? Dealer fitted. Now, what's your thoughts on the plastic?
Well, I did think of taking it off because the interior is absolutely brilliant underneath it, and I thought, well, they've gone to a lot of trouble to make a nice seat and then cover it with plastic. But then friends of mine and myself sort of thought about it, and I thought, well, it's no longer original once you take that off. It's part of the car's patina, it's part of the history.
Yeah. And the reason that the seats are immaculate is because the plastic has been on there.
Since '63, for sure. It seems that the guy, and I've got a classic list off the internet of all the options that were available, and this car has been fitted with everything, diff locks, remote boot opening, even has a very rare option which was the power operated quarter vent windows. It's got a really, it's the name that gets me, it's called autopilot. It's a cruise control. Yeah. So no, a 63 car with cruise control fitted, and it works. Yeah. The air conditioning still blows ice cold air. It's absolutely amazing. It's never been changed. The motor, when you look at the motor, it's sort of as is. So it hasn't been restored in the engine bay area, painted up or anything. It's as is, as the whole car is.
Stick around. Stay in your favourite chair. We'll be back after the break with more of Brian and this sensational 1963 Imperial Crown.
When I was a kid, I loved cars. Still do. The 57 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham was the most advanced car in the world. Cost more than a Rolls. Hand-built with a stainless steel roof, cruise control, electric seats, and would you believe, air suspension. American iron. It's a passion Shannons understand. That's why they insure my daily drive, the caddy, my bike, even the house.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. Have a look for your nearest Holden Certified Service Centre at holden.com.au, and let's keep supporting Australia's own.
Welcome back. Brian, I love looking at original stickers on the car. We see an American flag sticker there on the back window. There's also a travelling salesman's sticker as well. Now that's interesting. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the story comes from the guy I bought the car off in Melbourne. That was his job. He was obviously a travelling salesman. He spent a lot of his time in the car, and he wanted the best he could find as his sort of own personal private car. And this is the car he chose, so he was well converse with long distance travelling, and he knew what was around there, and that's what he bought at the time. Yeah, so I was just lucky to get a car that was owned by a true enthusiast, and just stored it and looked after it, and hence the low mileage and the condition of the car. Well, one of the things that I like when you buy a car is to get the provenance of the vehicle. I think it just makes a bit more of a backstory to the car. And I was fortunate enough that with this car, the initial owner that I bought it from had the original documentation from the dealer, the bill of sale, fellow's signature, which was the same the guy he bought it from, how much it was, the options fitted to it. It's quite a detailed sales invoice really. And along with that, he'd found the original dealership where the car was sold from in 1964. It's probably a year after, but it's close enough, judging by the models of the cars in the sort of area out the front. And what's more really, I think, freaked me out, when I opened the glove box, there was a sort of a docket from what we'd call it like a McDonald's type thing out here in America, some soft drink bar, you know, frosty type thing, with a redeemable coupon from 1963 still in the glove box. I just couldn't believe that sort of, you know, stuff. That it's almost as if it was, you know, you'd just gone back, you know, back to 1963, and there was the car sitting in the garage. I'm no Chrysler expert. I'd be the, you know, sort of got a bit of more of a background in Fords, but, you know, if you can't have a Ford, well, I guess the Chrysler's the next best thing to have in your shed. And if you're going to have one, have the top of the line being the Imperial, and that's what I was after. So look, I don't know the finer details on the 413, but I know it's a big motor. It's all those engines were low torque horsepower, so it's quite heavy. I had to get it weighed for a rego because it needed a blue slip in New South Wales, and it was 2,320 kilos, which is quite heavy for a car, right? Any car. So that's how I know how much it weighs. So you need that torque to get it to move, and the 413 is quite adequate for that. It just drives effortlessly on the road. You just point it and it goes. I've seen a lot of cars over my years, be it German or English cars, but the Chrysler is second to none with the finish on them. Just, you know, it's only a small thing, but for the manufacturer to chrome plate the ID tag, that's just out there, you know. And the wiring harness, which comes from the door into the B pillar, you know, or the A pillar really on the front, it's just, you know, not seen in normal manufactured cars of today's standard, and even in older cars. You look at the door latches, you know, even after all these years, you just shut the door and it just clunks like it should do. And the finish, it's sort of almost to the point of over-engineering things. And one of the stories that I read is they were made on their own line of vehicle manufacturing. They didn't sell a lot, so they figured they had the time to make the cars a little bit better than what the opposition was. And I think it shows in the end result of what you look at, the fit and alignment, the doors, apart from all the little, you know, creature finishes like cruise control, you know, autopilot in 1963. That's just out there, I think, you know, from my point of view. This car gives you a sort of feeling that you don't get in other vehicles. It's ride, it's comfort. And one of the things that really stands out to me is the amount of space you have. It's one of the widest cars that was ever made of any Cadillacs or any of the other big three Lincolns. The Imperial was the widest car. And when you look at the space around you, as a friend of mine once said, it's like sitting in a chromed lounge chair. And that's the feeling that you get. It's just, you know, it's so opulent and smooth and comfortable, and everything's, you know, all the things you would ever need are there in the car. And that's what I like about it. You know, with the pillarless, with the windows down, you're just cruising out there like you're meant to back in the day.
Like Dad, I've always been a Ford man. The Falcon Squire wagon was unloved in 1964, but turns heads today. The Americans call them woodies, but the panelling, it's just fiberglass and plastic. But it's a passion that Shannons understands, which is why my Fords are insured with Shannons. And now, so's the home.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. And if you own a classic, it just has to be insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646. And the Shannons Club awaits you with their in-house productions such as Shannons Club TV, Legends of Motorsport, Driven, End of an Era. You can catch classic Restos there as well, along with a whole host of other really cool stuff as Australia's largest automotive online hub. For more information, visit shannons.com.au. Okay, we're back with Brian. 1964 Dodge truck, Brian. What's the story here?
Well, it was my dad's truck. He bought it brand new when I was only a kid, obviously. And it was our family vehicle all our life. We only had one vehicle. And so when he passed, it was a decision to be made to keep it or move it on. And only because of the family ties, I decided to keep it.
So it was the family car?
It was. That was the only vehicle we had. Jammed up in the front seat, and that was it.
Wow. You were saying earlier, it used to have a slant six in it.
Yeah, that was the original fitment, slant six and a 4-speed box.
Yeah.
That's the way it came.
And what did your dad think when you fitted the 318 to it?
Oh, it was a bit much for him, really, because the acceleration is a lot quicker because it's got a 410 gear ratio.
Quick off the line.
Yeah, it just took off, and he had a circular driveway, and he was around before he could turn the wheel quick enough and shot across the grass on the driveway. It was a bit much for him to start off with.
Strong as. This is the thing with these things, typified Dodge's presence in the automotive
Yeah, well,
market.
we had horses. We used to show horses, our family.
Yep.
And we had a big horse trailer.
Yep.
One of the very first with a caravan in the front of it. They're sort of commonplace now. But you needed more. I remember Dad and I, not that I had any input into it, but I remember going with him looking at the F100 series at the time, right? And he thought they looked a bit weak in the high beam front end, and he wanted a full floating rear axle diff, and he just wanted a stronger truck. And the Dodge fitted the bill, and that's why he bought it. Yeah.
You've also painted this, right?
Yes, when it came, it was from the factory, it was just a straight grey.
Yeah.
And Dad ordered it with a white roof on it, just to be different.
Yep.
And then I opted for the Caterpillar yellow. It's one of the 3 range in the Caterpillar yellow colours, and that's the colour I chose.
So what year did you paint this?
Probably 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It was my first restoration job.
And did you just use
Look, I borrowed a compressor off a mate.
Not rattle can with
No, we had a proper compressor.
with a widget ball in it. You didn't.
We had a proper compressor. But the only mistake, as I said to you earlier, in my business, I had spare time on wet weather, being in earth moving. There was nothing to do on building sites, so I worked on the truck.
Yep.
But unbeknownst to me, you can't lay undercoat when it's raining outside, even though I was inside, absorb the moisture.
Yep.
And it took quite a few years for the moisture to come out, even though I put the top coats on in good weather.
Yeah.
The moisture was still in the primer coats.
Yep.
So I learnt by my mistake. But look, it's pretty good everywhere.
It's pretty good for 30 years.
Oh, more than 30 years ago since I painted this.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Brian, this is pretty cool up front here. You've done a good job.
Thank you for that, Fletch.
Considering it was so long ago too, might add.
Well, it was my first attempt.
It looks
First
nice.
attempt at a resto.
Love the gauges. Looks
Yep,
good.
all original.
Yeah, got the dash there, same colour as outside. It's just
Yep,
nice.
Yeah. Didn't have the black top on it originally, but it just made it a little bit different.
Yeah, and there's something about that, the old electric fan on top of the dashboard of the truck, isn't
So
it?
cool, isn't it? Literally.
Oh, it works too. Yeah.
I don't know anything that doesn't work, mate.
Oh, well,
Me, that's the thing that doesn't work.
yeah, nothing like circulating that 40-degree air around the cab, eh? Just like a hairdryer. That's nice. How do you feel, like, emotionally, to think that, well, it goes way back in your family for so long?
It does,
Your
yeah.
father's truck. How does it make you feel now?
It does. It makes me feel good because it's something that I've kept, and it's a legacy of your past and what you sort of grew up with in your younger days, and it's just what it is. I wouldn't have gone out and sought to buy, like I did with the Imperial, a Dodge truck.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't have been my top choice of.
Yeah.
Not anything wrong with it, I just wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But because of the family history,
Yep.
is the reason I kept it and restored it and brought it back to as it was.
Yeah. I can definitely appreciate that. But at the end of the day, too, old trucks are cool. They all are.
Well, nowadays they seem to be.
Dodge, absolutely.
When I did it,
yeah.
it was basically a work vehicle.
Yeah.
And now the things have just evolved slightly different, and
Yeah.
that's it's a case of when I grow up I'm going to be a Kenworth.
He's
Got the quilted padding on the
truck
roof.
characteristics inside this little fella. That you...
Tell you what, Brian, it's time now for you to charm us all with this Alice Chalmers.
Thank you, Fletch.
What year is it? Tell us about it.
1949. I believe that they started this particular tractor in about the mid-30s, and then in 39 they decided to electrify it with obviously an electric start. But it's the same tractor physically to look at from the early 30s right through till 1949, which by the serial number this one happens to be.
It's a cute little tractor. It's pretty cool to look at.
I mean, you can almost take it home and put it in the lounge.
How easy is it to work on? Anyone that tells you they couldn't do the spark plugs, they've got to give the game away.
I reckon it's quite simple. Yeah, it's easy to get at. Everything's there. The only thing that I'm not familiar with is magnetos. But,
And the tractor itself.
well, I've only had it a few weeks, to be quite honest with you.
Now, Brian, you're not a farmer. That's what I like about you. And you don't profess to be, but you've got an interest in these tractors. And I know there's people watching this episode right now that are going to be very impressed with that.
Thank you. Well, actually, it all started with a friend that you're going to do another story on. He invited me to join the Central West Charity Tractor Group, and they raise money for Little Wings, which is an aircraft transport sort of service for young kids in the country. And that's why I bought the one behind me to get into the tractor trekking. And that's how I started. And then the more I got into it, the more I thought, oh, I like the look of that one. And this one, I just like the look of it. I know it's a silly thing, and it was orange.
It's not so silly. If you're bored one day, you can put a plough behind it and go up the main street just try and get some looks.
They could do.
Now, the Fordson tractor over from us. Now, that's a nice looking tractor.
It
now,
is, it's a nice-
okay, so year model, tell us about that one,
It's a
Brian.
1961 for Farm Major. Now, the Major series ran through Majors, Super Majors, right? They were the main ones. But this is a Farm Major. And now I'm a member of the Fordson Tractor Club. And I think there was 24 odd that they know of. It was a very rare tractor, never sold anywhere else in the world except Australia. They were sent out in crates, minus the wheels and tyres, and then the wheels and tyres were locally fitted. They're Australia stamped and dated, that's how it's easy to pick the date on them. And so that's quite a rare tractor to find a farm major. They all look the same right through the whole major series, but it was mainly engine horsepower.
Okay, speaking of which, the diesel power nicely displayed there on the top cowling of the engine. What can you tell us about the diesel? What's its size, the horsepower?
You put me on the spot here. Like I said, I'm not a farmer. I just like the tractors. It's a 40 horsepower. I know that.
On that note, Brian, I want to thank you very much for your time here today to showcase the glorious 63 Imperial. Wasn't that something? It's even in the United States of America and some of the bigger shows you'll go to, you won't find better than that. There's no such thing as better. It's an amazing car. So thank you for showcasing that. And of course, your father's truck, which has been in the family since you were like a young bloke, and you've still got it today.
Some say I was never little, but
It goes good too. That 318 does a nice little job.
it does. It gets it moving when you have to. So,
And of course, the two tractors towards the end of today's show that Brian really couldn't tell us much about. But they look fantastic sitting here.
well, that's what it's about.
Well, Brian, again, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I want you to
Appreciate it, mate.
take care of yourself, huh?
I will do. See you next time.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, that's it. A wrap for this week's show. What a machine. 1963 Imperial Crown with 53,000 genuine miles on the clock. Looking at the car, it's hard to believe it's done 53,000. It's as though it's left Imperial and it's just been parked up for all of these decades. What an incredible car. This episode also touched on the family truck belonging to Brian's father, the 1964 Dodge, and of course rounding off with a couple of tractors that Brian really knew nothing about. Hope you enjoyed the show. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching.
You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.